The Turneffe Atoll Trust today released a report on the use of gillnets in Belizean waters. So what is the net loss or gain of the indiscriminate fishing gear? According to consultant Valentina Schall, there is a lot of degradation in the biodiversity of fish and marine life as a consequence of the continued use of gillnets. He believes that this puts important sectors of the economy at risk.
What we found was that there is a lot of infractions happening with regards to the use of gillnets. While we have the regulation that is supposed to regulate the use of gillnets, it is not very effective. And so that is something that really affects how these gillnets are used in Belizean waters. So it's not working well in terms of regulation and enforcement.
The data reveals that 3% of the 2,500 plus fishers, or 83 fishermen, have the requisite license and permits to use gillnets within Belizean waters. But transboundary fishers who continue to exploit marine resources are affecting the fisheries and tourism industries.
I think the information from this report is so valuable. It allows us to look at the facts as it relates to the regulation and the policies that exist. It allows us to look at both the economic and the environmental impacts of gillnet use in Belize. Apart from the gillnet study, it really also highlighted two very important facts. Dr. Rachel Graham has documented the issue we're having in Belize as it relates to the illegal fishing and the illegal trade of sharks going to Guatemala, one. And two, I think the investigative journalism work really highlights the scope and the magnitude of the amount of fish, Belizean fish, that's going to Guatemala. And I want to highlight that these are fish that are being caught by Guatemalans. They're buying gas in Guatemala, they're buying nets in Guatemala. They have, some of them have fishing licenses for different areas in Belize.
Also attending today's launch were fishers from the well-known northern fishing community of Turneffe. For decades, these registered fishers have been using traditional fishing gear, and they believe that the proposed ban on gillnets threatens their livelihoods. Jennifer Chapman of Blue Ventures says that the Turneffe fishers have not been engaged in the discussion, and a policy change can adversely affect them.
The issue at hand is really very complex, and so far the national discussion has focused on the issue with illegal and illegitimate gillnet fishers who are catching seafood, and there's a massive undocumented export of seafood going to Guatemala. This is what we heard about today in the press conference. My comments are not towards that. My comments are towards the legitimate, traditional, local fishers in Turneffe who catch using gillnets and have done for generations. And they are not responsible for the negative impacts that are being seen elsewhere. And so my position is that their rights of access need to be protected and need to be considered in the national discussion. That seems to me the obvious option here is providing a special license to these fishers, which enables them to continue to use their gear type and to continue to access these resources for generations to come.
Even as all this data is being sent to policymakers via the established Gillnet Task Force, monitoring and enforcement remains a major issue. Dwayne Moody for News 5.